Assalamualaikum and a very good day. My name is Ganesa and I will be presenting about homogenization. So, what is homogenization? Let me read it. It is a dominant culture that invades a local area to become the dominant culture, hence exterminating the local culture. Confusing, I know. So, basically what it means, where the most populated area with their own culture, they are trying to invade the locals one with the least populated, and then they are trying to replace it with their own culture. They are trying to, your culture is not good enough, so let me replace it with mine. Basically, that's what it is. It happens, if you look it up on the internet, it happens in Mexico City, Mexico, Toronto, Canada, etc., etc. It happens before or after or sometime now, I don't know, but it happens all around the world. So, what is homogenization in globalization? Cultural homogenization is an aspect of cultural globalization. Basically, what it means, in cultural globalization, there are few branches down there, and then one of it is the cultural homogenization. It refers to the reduction in cultural diversity through popularization and diffusion of a wide array of cultural symbols. Like I said before, they are trying to transfer their own culture, their own culture to the locals. Yada yada yada. And then, but they are not doing it like they're not doing it directly to those people. They are doing it through popularization in general ways. So it happens like unconsciously, consciously, I don't know. Not only physical objects, but customs, ideas, and values. They are trying to change their culture, their own customs, ideas, values to theirs. So basically, they are doing it through popularization by and they are doing it through popularization, right? So what's going through your head is like they are trying to transfer that cultural through fashions and music and so on and so forth, blah blah blah, but also their customs, ideas, their way of thinking. These locals, this dominant culture, they are trying to change these local cultures on their ways of thinking, their beliefs, their ideas, and their own, even their values. So that is homogenization in globalization. Thank you very much. So what is an example of homogenization? Homogenization processes also affect culture. The most obvious examples are the diffusion of Hollywood movies or of the global brands that people all around the world aspire to possess. The brands often not only represent the products but only a certain lifestyle. Like I said before, they popularize fashions, music. For example here, Hollywood movies or global brands that they are trying to popularize it, so they will transfer their own culture. For example, American culture, we actually adopt a few of the American culture here in Malaysia. The brands often not only represent the products but also a certain lifestyle. For example, this Hollywood, if you see Hollywood, we see America. So we adopt and adapt. That is one of the example of homogenization.
Assalamualaikum, a very good evening. So I will present the advantages of homogenizations. Homogenizations also shows that people trust one another easily due to their basic understanding of one belief, which means they only believe what they want believe. Like, for example, Malaysians culture. They believe that if we cut our fingernail at night, there will bad something happen to that person. So they because with Malay, so their belief with that things, then their understanding of that the belief, and there tends to be more charitable to one another. But the because of the homogenizations, people can also obtain easier and better quality of the communications. So next, the disadvantages of homogenizations. Well, disadvantages of homogenizations is that this purpose has been resented by many indigenous cultures. It destroys cultures, less diversity of idea, lost cultures and religion, meaning that culture homogenizations can impact a national identity and culture, which would be eroded by the impact of global culture industry and multinational media. The terms is usually used the context of Western culture dominating and destroying other culture. So this we can resent this by many indigenous culture, where they are like uh, because of these homogenizations, the indigenous culture barely we knew about that things. So uh, um, because of that also we lost culture and religions. Yeah, so that is the disadvantages of homogenizations. So next, what is the purpose of homogenizations is that for culture standardizations and the enforced obedience of the in common laws, which means like culture homogenizations is an aspect of global speak of a culture globalizations, listed as one of its main characteristics, and refers to the reductions in culture diversity through the popul- popularizations and diffuse of a wide array of cultural symbols, not only physical objects but custom ideas and value. That's it's the purpose of homogenization. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to continue presenting about fragmentation. What is fragmentation? Fragmentation is emphasizing a culture of another, or another meaning is the breakdown of more traditional senses of cultures. At a global level, fragmentation can be defined as the concept of cultural fragmentation implies the integration of singular cultures and the formation of numerous diverse cultures, which they can be associated with particular ethnicities, religions, concepts of nationhood, or people groups. Uh, those associated with particular forms of lifestyle, values, or communication. Next, provide you with some example for us to see what is fragmentation is all about. Okay, if you think of a particular powerful example of cultural fragmentation in terms of religious division, let's say between Christian and Muslims, the different emotional impact of both linguistic and non-linguistic symbol on these two groups different are different. Okay, let's see a situation to have a deeper insight in terms of this example of fragmentation. Okay, we know that the cross or the word crease, we have a much more profound and generally more positive emotional effect on the Christian than on the Muslim. and vice versa for us, the Christian or the word Muhammad. At the same time, however, there are varying degrees to which Christians do not understand the cognitive sense of Muhammad to Muslim, because this cultural complex web of metaphors, which it is understood or vice versa for Muslim and Christ, means sometimes Muslim does not know about the cross or anything about the Christ, but vice versa for Muslim, then for Christian they don't know about Muhammad, or the crescent is our symbolized in Islam. Okay, for the second example I provide here in terms of toilet practices, we know the Indian, and as well for us the Muslim, we the custom of how we keep our hygiene after defecation or what, always with water and by using our left hand. But for the Western, their habit is only by using toilet paper. So we can see the two different fragmentation between two cultures here.
What is the difference between homogenization and heterogenization? For homogenization, it is more representative of the structural level, such as there are more physical McDonald's buildings, credit cards, shopping malls, and etc., while heterogenization represents a process which leads to a more inwardly appearing world due to the intensification of flows across cultures. Hence, local cultures experience continuous transformation and reinvention due to the influence of global factors and force. Also, heterogenization is more representative of the symbol level, like the ways in which hamburgers are eaten, TV shows are understood, and so forth, because different countries with different cultures with different ways. The assumptions of implications for aggregate cultural change. The cultural fragmentation model assumes that people know much more culture than they use. This is stated by Swidler 2001, and that the external physical, social environment is the primary factor in determining which culture tool gets used in a particular situation. If Swidler 1986 and DiMacchio 1997 argued, culture does not work via the implanting of durable disposition in persons via a deep internalization process, but instead functions primarily by making publicly meanings more or less available. It follows that the contemporaneous social conditions should play the largest role in accounting for aggregate cultural change. This is because the individuals will select the elements of their broad cultural repertoires that are the best suited to the environment created by public ritual, Swidler 2001 state that, and common knowledge by Chu 2011. Okay, for the second example is the toilet practices. The Indian as well as for Muslim custom of cleaning the anus after defecation with water from the left hand. Why they didn't use right hand when they're washing their anus? It is because they drink or eat by using right bare hand, and not left hand. So it seems not proper if they are washing their anus by using right hand, because how come the same hand that you use for eating or drinking, and you use it for wash your teeth, and you use it for wash the anus too? It's not proper actually, but different to the Westerner, because The Western's habit of using toilet paper is accorded significance by both sides, because as you can see, mostly the Westerners, they are eating by using fork and spoon, so they have utensils. They didn't use bare hands for eating. So that's why they use toilet tissue instead washing with water and left hand. So even if the divergent customs were regarded as unimportant and treated quite passively, they would still be significant. But given the degree of cultural attachment to each different approach, the fragmentation of meaning here is actually substantial. The cultural fragmentation model. What Peterson 2014 state, in explicit contrast to the classical socialization model, the most influential scholars in the cultural turn on 1980s and 1990s rejected internalized culture as an important dimension of the motivation of actions and challenged the very efficiency of internalization as the most influential channel of cultural acquisition. While Swidler 1986 stated that one of the earliest and most articulate advocates of this paradigmatic turn was clear in proposing that culture does not work via enduring psychological proclivities implanted in individuals by their socialization. Instead, she argued that the the publicly available meanings facilitate certain patterns of action, making them readily available while discouraging others. DiMaggio 1997 reinforced these points on a decade later. He stated that drawing on selected research from cognitive and social psychology, he again criticized the internalization model associated with classical socialization theories. Instead, he argued that the sources of stability in our beliefs and representations should not be sought in the internal structure of our minds, but rather in external cues embedded in the physical and social environment. So, what both DiMaggio's and Swidler's proposals have in common is the idea that culture is not internalized in any structure or durable way, but whatever acquisition takes place does so in a disorganized fashion. And that's why Lizardo and Strand 2010